This is another episode of the Gauntlet Podcast. My name is Jason.
And I'm Rich.
And I'm Dan.
Awesome. Hey, Rich, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks for bringing me along. I'm excited to be part of the Gauntlet crew this time.
Cool. Yeah. Listeners, you may know Rich from a million role-playing game-related activities on the internet, including the Cannon Puncture Show and Dr.
Tom the Frog Show. I'm just a production assistant monkey on that, but I'm also part of Indie Plus.
Yes.
It's kind of the big thing I do right now.
Yeah, so we're happy to have you. Well, so Rich, the first thing we always do is we discuss the games we have been playing recently. And I'm looking at the list right now, and it appears all three of us have been playing Monster of the Week, but in 3 different games of Monster of the Week. Before we begin, I wonder if Michael Sands knows how much we're playing his game. I'm really curious about that. He's impossible to tag on Google+, so he may not
never know.
Yeah.
Actually, the last time I posted up, he +1 my thing, so...
I guess we just don't have the in with Michael Sands.
I'll
Dan,
do what
that's
I can.
True, yeah, we just don't have the clout.
Well, Monster of the Week, we've talked about it before. It is a game about people who have come together to hunt monsters. It's an episodic game based off of the Apocalypse World system. The idea is it's supposed to mimic TV shows like Supernatural or The X-Files, where every session you fight a different monster. You have to investigate the manner of killing it, and then you have to go about the business of killing it. And you often have innocent bystanders, and the monster has minions you have to cope with, and that sort of thing. It is pretty terrific. We've been playing it for a long time, pretty much since it came out, and I'm very fond of it. How'd you guys' sessions go?
Mine was pretty good. I kind of left it still feeling like the investigation doesn't do a whole lot for me in that game. I love the atmosphere, and I love the approach of gearing up to go find this monster, but the actual, investigation part still just kind of feels flat to me.
I see you nodding, Rich. It sounds like you might agree with that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that was... So I played in the game, and in it, there was almost no investigation. The monster kind of came upon us pretty quick. In the game that I was running, I was using the Dreamers module in the revised edition, and there was a point when the players looked at me and said, so... how much investigation-y stuff are we doing? And I'm like, let's just get to the monster. It's not called Investigation of the Week.
I have a slightly different experience with it. My games do have a fair amount. There's a pretty heavy investigation component in it. I agree, Dan, well, to this extent. The investigation move is not great still.
Yeah.
The questions that you can ask, it often feels very like the player wants to ask a really specific thing, and you have to kind of find a way of shoving their question into one of the predetermined questions on the move. It's a bit awkward. I kind of fudge it a little bit and basically just let them kind of do the 12+ version of the move, which lets you basically ask anything. That's kind of where we've gone with it. Still kind of staying within the parameters of what can hurt it and what can it do, where did it go. But, yeah, it's a little weird in that way. I can't believe after the revised edition, they still left that move kind of clunky. But, I do like lots about the revised edition though. I am very happy with how they changed the experience points. It's now done like Dungeon World, where you get the experience when you fail. And just overall, the game feels more like Dungeon World, which I think is a good thing. I think it's an appropriate move for that game. So, yeah. Well, so the next game on the list is Star Wars Edge of the Empire. That Rich, you played that. I should tell you, Rich, I hate that game, but I'm curious to hear how your experience with it has gone.
I'm pretty much will play anything with Star Wars in the front of it. So that was my entryway. It's a weird game. I love the look of the game, but then I don't know which colored dice I'm supposed to roll, and then we roll, and I spend a few minutes of going, so I got no successes, but I got a triumph. I don't know what that means.
Can I ask you, are you playing that online?
I am, yeah.
How are you doing the dice online? Because it has all these very strange, multicolored, strangely shaped dice that have weird faces on them.
There is a super cool Hangout app that has all the dice.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's
cool.
It
even can hover over the dice after they're rolled, and it will tell you these were this number of successes or failures, this number of triumphs, or the other silly names that they have for.
Right. Yeah. Well, so sell me on this game. Am I not being fair to this game? In the past, my problems with it have been, it just feels a little like it doesn't kind of know what it wants to be. Like it has like a lot of heaviness, kind of like a trad game, but it also has this sort of like it's trying to be a narrative game as well. And it kind of doesn't, it's kind of somewhere in this like ugly middle place to me where it doesn't really feel great as either type of game. What are your, I don't know, what would, if you were to say like one thing to like get me to change my mind and try this game, what would it be?
Ooh, that's a tough one. because I'm having trouble being sold myself. Okay. Do you like Western games, Star Wars, but you want something that's in print?
That's not a great sell for me. Good effort. Okay. So, how's your game going though? Is it going well or?
Oh, it's going just great. It's a fun group, and we have a good time bouncing off of each other. The system doesn't get in the way if that that solves for you. It's a very more conventional style of game experience.
Yeah. I guess I imagine with the die roller it'd be a little like maybe that might make the process a little more efficient.
It
guess.
Does. It definitely speeds it up.
Yeah. Because that was the problem that I found. Like there were all these dice, and they all have all these strange like faces on them, and you have to decipher what they mean. And to me, it just felt like kind of a slowdown when you could have just had like a more simple dice-based conflict resolution that lets you narrate your moves. I don't know, but anyway.
Yeah, like 2 6-sided dice, and 7 to 9, it's like a mixed success.
Yeah, 10 plus is a great success. Yeah, 7 to 9. Yeah,
that
awesome.
would be a good mechanic.
Would be. They should get on that. Okay, cool. Star Wars: Edge of the Empire. Is there anything else you want to say about it?
No.
Well, that's the next game on the list then is Monikers. That's a party game. So Houston Gauntlet was very did a lovely thing where they threw me a going away party because I'm in New Jersey now. And so I was leaving Houston and they threw me a going away party. It was great. Loads of fun. And one of the party games that we played was called Monikers. Monikers is essentially, you have 2 teams, like all good party games. They're 2 big teams, right? And you have all of these cards that have different elements or like characters or people. Often they're like people in the media or cultural memes or things like that, right? Just card game stuff, right? And so you have this big you kind of like pick some of these cards. You have a stack of about, what is it, Dan? Maybe like 30 or 40 or something like that.
Yeah, I guess it depends on how many people you have because everybody chooses 4 or something. So we had a ton of people, so we had a ton of cards.
Yeah, it's like 30 or 40, something like that. Anyway, you have the stack, and you play the game in multiple rounds. In the first round, you are trying to get your team to guess what your card is, and you can basically say anything. Like, you can even just, like, read the flavor text on the card, and they guess it. And you're trying to, like, get through as many of them as you can in the very, very short period of time you have to do it. And you get points for plowing through those. And some of them are worth more points than others, right? And so you do that. And then in the second round, you use the same deck, but this time in the second round, you can only say a single word, and you can repeat that word as much as you want, but you can only say a single word. So if your card was, let's say, give me one, Dan. What was a good one we had?
The Zodiac Killer.
The Zodiac Killer, right? What would the word be for that? I don't even know.
I don't know. I just wanted to see what you would come up with.
You could say like Sagittarius. Right.
There you go.
You could say Sagittarius or Capricorn. And because they remember that the Zodiac Killer was one of the things from round 1, they might put 2 and 2 together and say, oh, that's Zodiac Killer for round 2, even though the only word you're saying is Sagittarius. Right. And then in round 3, you're working through the deck again, trying to get as many points as you can. And in round 3, all you can do is, what's the restriction on round 3?
Round 3 is just charades.
It's just charades, basically, right? It's silent charades. You can't say anything, right? You can make noises, but you can't say words. And so it's got this really neat thing where, each round, the task you have to complete is getting harder and harder, but you also are becoming more familiar with the cards that are in the deck. And so, I don't know, it was fun. I really loved it. We had a great time. Tremendous fun. What'd you think of it, Dan?
Oh yeah, it's great. And then we played, you left out the bonus round 4, which was, charades, but underneath a sheet. So you put a sheet over your head and you do charades, which I don't know. I felt like in a lot of ways, round 2 was kind of the hardest one out of all of them because you're less familiar with the cards that are there. So like by the time round 3 and 4 come around, like you kind of know what's there and you got a good feel for it.
Yeah.
But yeah, round 2, if you pick the wrong word, then you're just sitting there stuck saying that one word over and over and everyone is just getting frustrated. So it's fantastic.
You can skip cards though. You don't have to like,
sure.
You're not like, you can like, if no one's getting it, you can go to the next card in the deck, right? You can pass or whatever. I thought it was great fun. The 4th round, the bonus round where you go under the sheet. I took some photos of the group and it looked really strange because we just looked like ghosts. We're like just ghosts, like standing in the middle of your living room. It was great fun. Monikers Monikers is really good. People should go check that out. Okay, so Rich, I gather that you played a couple of in-development games or games that are very close to being finished. One is Masks, the Supers game, and then the Fate accelerated version of Dresden. That's kind of related to our main topic, so I think we're going to hold on to that if that's okay.
Sure.
In which case, we're going to move on to Monsterhearts. We have talked about Monsterhearts, I don't know, 900 times on the podcast before, so I don't think we really need to set it up. It's about sexy teenage monsters. But the game of Monsterhearts that Rich and I played together was for our Saturday morning cartoons event. It was the big finale session of Monsterhearts for our first series of Monsterhearts. How'd you think it went?
I loved it. It would have been nice if we could have had the full boat. We did have one missing player who was kind of a fulcrum point of some of the plots, but you worked around it really well. It was just, I would have liked to have that if he could have been there. I really enjoyed the cuckoo skin. It gave a different flavor to the way that the game played, and I like that you rolled with it because there was a little bit more lightness to the dark, which was nice. A lot of times when I hear of AP in Monsterhearts, people are really going for broke. It almost feels like a fiasco with teenagers. But this game, there were stakes that felt personal, and that was something I really enjoyed about that game.
That was my feeling on it too. I mentioned this on the last regular episode we did, and which was I felt like everyone was really committed to telling like very personal stories, and also very it had like a really good dose of like lightheartedness to it. You know, it wasn't like super dark and heavy. I mean, I tried my best with some of the villains, but there was always a lot of comedy, and I really liked it. I thought the tone was great. I thought the players, you guys were gelling really well. It was really fantastic. It was not as PvP oriented as I'm accustomed to in Monsterhearts, which I thought was interesting, but it was still great. I would have watched that TV show. That was kind of my feeling on it. Like, definitely. I would have watched the show version of it.
Oh yeah.
Dan, you played the cuckoo. I had some practice with the cuckoo already because Dan had played the cuckoo in a series that we ran before. That's a great skin. I love that one.
It is, yeah. I feel like that one gives you so many more options than a lot of them, just because like in a lot of ways you almost have like GM levels of control over where things go, because you can just become anyone, and now it's like, well, I'm gonna go fuck with this guy now, right?
Right.
I love it, yeah.
Yeah, the cuckoo, I was very purposely letting Rich this time around like frame a lot of his scenes, because I feel like the cuckoo is I got the feeling that the cuckoo is a very like player driven skin, kind of like you just said, Dan.
Right.
Like it really, really lends itself to the player like setting things up and getting people in trouble, getting himself in trouble or herself in trouble. And whereas some of the other characters, like say the Infernal, to me, the Infernal, because of their connection to the dark power, which is just so listeners know, the Infernal is like a teenager who basically worships the devil and has like a demonic like overlord that they serve. That one's a lot more like GM driven.
Right.
You know, I've always kind of viewed that one as a little bit more GM driven skin. You end up in the same place no matter what, but I just, the differences, you're right. The differences are very interesting in that way to me. You also played another game of Monsterhearts. Is that correct, Rich?
That is correct. I've just started playing in a play-by-post of Monsterhearts. It is set in a Japanese high school, so not only is it Monsterhearts, but then there's this heavy layer of it is as genuine as we can get towards Tokyo, which is fun because the MC, his wife Japanese, he's been to Japan numerous times, and he kind of has so honey, how would they react like this? And he'll come back. And so that's been really fun.
Cool. So, play-by-post, I gather you play other play-by-post games as well. I understand from Jankcast, for example, that you're also running Apocalypse World, right?
Oh, I am. That's a huge 7-player crazy love fest of Apocalypse World. Love that game.
A couple of questions I had when I was looking at the notes. The first question, how did you start doing play-by-post? And then the second question, which might be kind of wrapped up into the answer of your first, what are the advantages or the pleasures of doing play-by-post gaming versus, say, online or face-to-face?
First got into play-by-post, I would say it's been 5 years now. A friend of mine that I was playing Primetime Adventures with, we were playtesting the 3rd edition before it came out. And he said, hey, there's this Apocalypse World game running over play-by-post, and he invited me to try it. And I'm like, well, I've tried play-by-post a long time ago with D&D, and it just was so slow, you know? But when you've got games that are narrative-focused and have very quick resolution that's more conflict-level than task-based, play-by-post can sing pretty well. And then with the idea that it's no longer a long email that you're writing, you can actually do things on your phone. You know, the enjoyment I get out of it is it's kind of always on. Right?
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, so it's really pleasurable because you can kind of knock out a paragraph, 2 paragraph. Anybody can do that, right? It's not like you have to write a bunch of purple prose. It's just, I almost call it comic book style. I don't feel like I'm writing a novel. This is not very literary in its intent. It's very much like we're working together on a comic book is kind of the vibe that I have.
Cool. Awesome.
Just to do a quick diversion, have you done anything with Storium, Rich?
I have, and it is a pretty cool system. It's got its own mechanics built in. However, the player attrition, because you've got a whole bunch of people, and so I've actually had 3 games that just fell off the map just recently, actually.
Yeah.
But Storium, as far as the actual engine and the ideas behind it that are driving it, really solid. I don't know what, they keep iterating and trying to help with player retention, but it's been a real problem.
Yeah, that was my experience with it too. I played about 3 games and none of them got anywhere close to finishing, and so I was just like, all right, I guess I'm done here.
Oh, it's sad.
There's a story of Gabe just today that went up where someone was pitching for players, and I thought it was funny that one of the people who's created a character for that is the guy who's the GM of a game that went fallow like 2 months ago. I'm like, oh, there you are.
Well, yeah, play by post. That's a thing that I have wanted to get going on Gauntlet Hangouts for ages. Listener Fowler actually did a little choose your own or cheat your own adventure thing, which was quite fun, actually. And even with that little, like, light sampling of play by post, and that was a very, very, short-term light thing, I did like that always-on aspect of it. I hadn't thought about it until you just said it, Rich, but I enjoyed being able to always see what people were doing. It was kind of a thing that was always going on, mm-hmm. And it was kind of fun just to have in the back of my mind at all times, like, if I get to narrate the person's death, this is what I'm going to do, like that kind of thing. So yeah, it's pretty cool. I'd like to see more play-by-post happen on Gauntlet Hangouts. Listeners, I'd like to see more play-by-post happen on Gauntlet Hangouts. Get in touch. Okay, cool. Play by post. The next game on the list is Lacuna. I love Lacuna. Dan, give the listeners an overview of Lacuna.
It's very Inception-y in a way. All of the players are mystery agents, and it's in like a near future setting where they found this dream world that everyone is subconsciously linked up to. And so people who commit crimes, it turns out that the reason they do that is because they have a hostile personality, which has sort of taken over their body and caused them to do horrible things. But you can go to the dream world and exorcise their demons in the dream world. And like, it's very hand wavy on how that actually works. But once that happens, you pull back out of the dream world and they've sort of been lobotomized a little bit and they're like reformed, quote unquote. That's the general thing, is like, you're in this big bureaucratic agency that's in charge of doing this. And it's all very mysterious and opaque. And it's like almost paranoia levels of, we're not going to tell the players what's going on. But the difference and what makes it, in my opinion, better than at least the old version of Paranoia, I'm not going to throw the new version under the bus just yet. But what I like about it over the old versions of Paranoia is there's not a 300-page book that tells the GM what's going on that the players don't have access to. It's just like no one knows what's really going on. So a lot of really interesting blanks are left in the rules for like the GM to fill out during play. And the way that actually turns out is it's like someone described it, I think, as a Rorschach test for GMs, where you sort of look at this book and your style will like manifest itself in the game because there's so few constraints on what you're supposed to be doing that like it just gives you permission to do, this is the game I want to do. So this is like my interpretation of it. And it's interesting to see. I've run it once and I've played in 2 games run by 2 different people, and every game was very different.
Let's go there. I mean, you've run it once. Yeah, you said you've basically experienced it 3 different times. Yeah. One shot's all, correct?
Yes. Though this one is actually going to be a 3-shot.
Oh, okay, cool. But you've only done one session so far.
We've done one session so far, yeah.
Okay. Well, so I'm curious, does the game feel more or less the same each time, or are there like big differences between each play? Or what were or I guess like in what ways were they different, I guess, is what I'm asking. It's
a lot to do with where the GM sort of focuses their energy and like what they pick up as the important parts of the setting. In the game I played, it was very much like, or in the game I ran, it was very much like very Inception-y and like sort of trying to just hit the players over and over with like how weird and unpredictable the dream world is. That was my interpretation of it, and that was what I thought was important. But then like we played the game where Doyle was running it, And his game was probably over half the game was not inside the dream world. It was dealing with like the bureaucracy outside and doing a lot of like
and I loved it.
free RP outside.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it was great. So Russ's game, he's running it for us now, and his skews more toward my style, I think. But it's still like very much, you know, if someone had like transcribed that game, I probably could have been like, oh, that sounds like a game Russ ran. So.
Okay. All right. Cool. I mean, I know, I've only ever played the one you ran and the one that Doyle ran, but, in both cases, the one thing that kind of stuck out to me about it was playing Lacuna felt like watching really good British television. Does that make sense? Like it had kind of, I'm
going to say that doesn't make sense to me.
Okay, yeah, and I don't even know how to explain it, so you should probably just edit this out. But, but it just felt like, I don't know, like, just in the sense that like British television has like, I think handles like genre conventions in a more interesting way to me. And so, I don't know where I'm going with that. Just ignore it. Let's have a nice clean cut to Rich. How about that?
Rich, I love Lacuna Part 1. I've played it a number of times, twice where it was more than a one shot. And in one where I planned it to happen over numerous sessions, I actually had, as we have a criminal and you go and you find their ghost version or their dream version and you attack their monster. During the profile part, I would list their crimes, and the crimes started getting more and more minor because more and more people were cured of their crimes. And it was an interesting twist on the idea of where do the bad thoughts go?
Right.
Where's the Lacuna? And that was fun. That was a fun twist on it.
Do you think Jared Sorensen will ever make part 2?
I hope not. I think we're making part 2 every time we.
That's good.
I think that's kind of the intention.
Yeah,
and I'm pretty sure that at some point he said that it wasn't even meant to be played or something like that. Which,
right,
yeah. This is a game that he never meant anyone to play. He just accidentally produced it and sold it.
Awesome. Well, Lacuna's great. I dig the book too. The book is really good. Like,
it's one of my favorite character sheets too.
Yeah, it really is. That we've talked about it before. To remind listeners, it's the character sheet it's a Scantron, right? Yeah. Which is pretty badass. Cool. Yeah. Listeners, check out Lacuna. That just leaves the last game on the list, if I'm looking at this correctly, which is A Penny for My Thoughts. Dan, will you also set up that one for us?
Sure. Yeah. So this one is also sort of a dreamy sort of deal where all of the players are people with amnesia. And so some traumatic event has happened in their lives that caused them to lose their memory up until the point where they were admitted to this hospital where they're undergoing this treatment to figure out what happened to them. And so the conceit of the game is that you can't remember your own memories because there's something blocking you, but there's this drug that'll let your memories sort of just float freely through the air. And so other people in the room can pick them up. But regular people who have their own intact memories, their memories are too strong. So you have a bunch of amnesiacs sitting around in a room in therapy. They all take this drug and their memories just float around the room and they pick up on each other's memories. Because, the traumatic things that happen to you, they don't affect the other people, so they have no trouble remembering it. So that's the, explanation of the mechanics. The way the mechanics actually work is you start telling a story by drawing these memory triggers that you've written beforehand. Most of the time, they're kind of sensory things or, feelings or emotions. So, the sound of my boots crunching in snow or something like that, right? Or, the sight of a bloodstained carpet or something. So you draw that, and then the other players will ask you questions about it, questions that you actually have to say yes to. So if it's the blood stain on the carpet, one of the other players might say, well, is it your blood? And you say yes. And then you add something else to it. So yes. And I had cut myself while carving a steak or something. Right. And so that kind of sets up the scene. And then as you play it out, anytime you get to a point, you describe everything that's happening around you and all of the reactions of the other characters in the scene, but you can never say what you yourself did or what you said. So anytime you get to a point in the story where you have to make a decision, you say, well, what did I do or say then? And you ask two different people and they give you two options and you pick the one you like best. And then you proceed telling the story from there, saying how everyone else reacts when you do that thing. And you kind of continue on that way. And then at the end, you have a little discussion where you've figured out what happened to you to cause you to lose your memory. And then you decide whether you want to like retrieve your memories and become yourself again, or if you just want to forget any of this ever happened and just go on living a memory-free life.
That was a really good summary, Dan.
Thanks.
Yeah, I like A Penny for My Thoughts. I think it's pretty terrific. I'd only played it. That was the first time I played it with you, that last game. And it had a cheat your own adventure vibe to it, right? Like you have people giving you options and you have to choose the option or whatever.
Yeah, I think I said it the last time we talked about it, but it's really difficult if you've played a lot of cheat your own adventure. It's really difficult to phrase when you say, oh, you did this. It's really difficult to say you did this instead of, if you did this, turn to page 35. Right?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. It's a pretty cool game. I have to say the one thing that bugged me about it, and I don't know if it's just because we play gobs and gobs of story games, and so we're pretty like adept at them. But I felt like the sort of ritual procedure that you do in that game is a little handholdy, and I found it a little annoying personally. But
well, I mean, I think it works in the context of this is a therapy group, and so we're going through all of these very ritualized things. I mean, it has a very sort of 10-step vibe to it, right? Or 12 steps.
Yeah.
There's 12 steps, right?
Yeah, I guess so. I'll withhold my criticism for now as I ponder that idea, Dan.
Okay.
Rich, have you ever played A Penny for My Thoughts?
I have not actually played it. I've owned it for a long time and tried to get it to the table and never been successful.
I actually own 2 copies of it, and I because I just bought it in the store, and then like 6 months later, I bought it in the store again. So on the day we played, did I raffle off a copy? I think I just gave it to you, Dan, didn't I?
Yeah, no. So now I have a copy also. It's great.
Yeah, Penny for My Thoughts. Cool. Well, let's go ahead and go on to the next segment. The next segment is called Giving Me Life. This is where we discuss things that are not necessarily related to role-playing games that we're really into right now. Dan, what's giving you life?
So this week, what's giving me life is a documentary. It's on Netflix. It's called Exporting Raymond. Are you guys familiar with it?
No.
Okay, so it is about the man who created the sitcom Everyone Loves Raymond, which is terrible. And what he did is he went to Russia to try to make a Russian version of Everyone Loves Raymond. Is like Everyone Loves Kostya or something. And so it's a really simple movie in a lot of ways because it's just like a camera following him around, right? But it's him like dealing with Russia in general and then like the Russian television sitcom world specifically. And like the parts that were really interesting were the parts that were talking about like showing the differences in humor between like American audiences and Russian audiences and like what they want, right? So apparently the things that had been big hits in Russia were all like shows where they just get progressively crazy as things go on. Like it's like a normal show and then things are crazy and things are breaking and like people are dancing and screaming, and so then that's like a Russian hit sitcom. But Everybody Loves Raymond was much more focused on like day-to-day sort of like Raymond's a sad sack who gets bossed around by his wife, right? I think that's more or less the plot of every episode. And so it's all about like his struggle to try to explain why that's funny to Russians who are all like, no Russian will ever identify with that because Raymond sounds like a huge sissy and like no one will like him. So a lot of stuff with that and just like going in depth about like there's a joke in this episode and it works. Like as an American, I can understand why it works, but listening to him try to explain to Russians why it's funny is the most amazing thing. And them just saying like, no, that's not even a joke. That's just nothing. That's not funny at all. Over and over. So yeah, it's great. It's just like an examination of the differences between comedy in the United States versus Russia. So, Exporting Raymond, it's on Netflix. You should check it out.
Cool. Awesome. Rich, what's giving you life this week?
You know, a lot of people say that they're sick of comic book movies and television shows, but I am not one of those people.
Do people say that?
I've read it on the internet, so people are saying it on the internet. And I'm just excited because Arrow, Flash, they're coming back. iZombie, I'm like 2 episodes away from done with the first season. I'm insisting on watching it with my wife. I won't watch ahead. And The Walking Dead, I'm excited because the premiere is coming up, and my jogging buddy and I are going to go to a local, like, little playhouse theater where they show the episodes just free. You just show up, and they usually get like 300 people. Huh. And I've never been to this experience, so I don't know what kind of crazy dress up people are going to be there, but I love The Walking Dead. It's a fun show, and so I'm excited about comic book TV coming back.
I really dig that spin-off Walking Dead. My mom got me watching that recently. It's called Fear the Walking Dead. Have you seen that one?
Oh, yeah. I just watched the sixth and final episode last night.
I haven't seen it. Don't tell me what happens. I haven't seen it yet. But
they're zombies, Jason. I'm sorry.
It's pretty good, though. I like it a lot. It's I like Walking Dead also. I know it's based off a graphic novel, but to me, that's not like a comic book thing. It's not a superhero comic book thing, right?
Sure. And Zombie is also based off of a comic book, but it's not necessarily a superhero comic.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not like totally opposed to superheroes. I think I just, it's having this cultural moment that I'm not quite, it's mostly I just can't keep up with it. That's my biggest issue. Like, I can't keep up with it. I wish it was like just less, but anyway. But for people, but I tell you what, I was just telling my mom this on the way up to New Jersey. I was explaining that if we had all these comic book movies and TV shows when I was in high school, I would have been beside myself, like with joy, like that, like the kids today they don't know how good they've got it. They really don't. So youth of America, get off my lawn and shut the hell up when you're in the movie theaters so that I can watch a comic book movie in peace. So, yeah. Anyway. No, that's cool. Awesome. Yeah, I dig, I need to watch, if on your list, Rich, if you're going to suggest just one of these, what's the one you would pick?
Oh gosh. I would have to say, what is it that you most enjoy in regular TV shows? Like,
Hot Guys.
Hot Guys. All right. For Hot Guys, you would probably want to go with Arrow. I think there are quite a few hot guys.
I happen to know something about that show. I happen to know that a former hairless teenage werewolf is on that show. So I'm sold. Yeah, I'm down with it. I don't remember the actor's name, but I know he was on Teen Wolf. So, cool. Awesome. So the thing giving me life is OSR zines. So I've recently discovered this thing that I think that to OSR people is probably really old hat, but to me, I thought it was really great. There is this whole OSR fanzine community. So I should back up a little bit. For listeners who don't know what the OSR is, it's the old school Renaissance. It is, it's a gaming community movement focused on basically just playing first ed D&D in various iterations. But also there's a whole like set of core principles behind it as well, which are very fascinating and we've talked about before on the cast. But these zines though, these fanzines are a lot like the fanzines of like, say, the early 80s punk movements or whatever, right? Or late 70s punk movements. Just little DIY booklets of cheaply printed, quickly printed supplemental material for various OSR games. And I really dig it. I like DIY stuff as a general matter. I just kind of like I like the aesthetic and the vibe of it. And I also like the aesthetic and vibe of the OSR, even though I don't play OSR games. I consider myself OSR curious, maybe is the right way to put it. OSR adjacent, I'm not sure. But the great thing about the OSR is because all that material is so, it can be used with any OSR game. Like, so you can use, you can use Lamentations material for Labyrinth Lord material, for Swords and Wizardry material, right? Or Swords and Wizardry material. Because it's so flexible, you can also use it for Dungeon World. And so that's how I use it. So yeah, OSR zines, they're badass. I've got 3 to recommend too, that I've been looking at. The first is called, Crawl with an exclamation point, Crawl. And that is for Dungeon Crawl Classics, which is one of the more innovative OSR games, in my opinion, because it adds different mechanics from just normal D&D. There's another one called Oubliette, which is for Labyrinth Lord, I believe, which is pretty awesome. And there's the Undercroft for Lamentations of the Flame Princess. And then our very own co-host Doyle edited and helped put out a sort of maxi zine, like a big zine for DCC, for Dungeon Crawl Classics, called The Gong Farmer's Almanac. That one's completely free and has 5 big volumes, and they're pretty awesome. So I'll include links in the show notes. But yeah, OSR zines.
So are these zines, like, can you get physical copies of these things Xeroxed and sent to you?
I don't have any physical copies yet, but I know you can. I think conventions are the main space where you can get them, and I think you can also order them online. I'm okay with the PDFs for now because I'm mostly interested in the content, but I do want some physical copies. I think that'd be pretty awesome. But I just haven't figured out an efficient way of getting the ones I want yet. So there's also a community on G Plus dedicated to OSR zines, and I'll also link to that in the show notes. So yeah, OSR zines.
You know, it feels like it needs to be a physical thing to be a zine, like the punk style zine. But I imagine if you could have just emailed PDFs to people and have them print them out themselves, that's what the punk zines would have done. So
yeah, exactly. You're in the right frame of mind there, Dan.
Right.
That's correct.
I saw across Kickstarter, I think it was a month and a half ago, there was a Kickstarter for someone who had a wooden box that was an OSR zine keeper.
I saw that, yeah. I couldn't figure out what the purpose of it, though. Could you figure out what the purpose of that box was?
You get all your OSR zines, and you fill up the box. Then you carry it to your game sessions.
So it's literally just a box.
It was a box. Yeah.
Okay. It was a wooden box. If you take your zines out, you can roll dice in it.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. Oh, boy. Awesome. Let's go to the next segment. So our main topic today, Rich, it was your idea, this topic, so I'm going to let you tell the listeners what we're going to talk about.
This originally came off of the most recent episode where you guys reviewed 3 Forged games. Gave some really great, concise feedback to the designers. And recently I've been part of, as we mentioned in the top of the show, the Dresden Files Fate Accelerated playtest, as well as the Masks RPG, which just came out on Kickstarter. So I've been involved in some playtests recently and had some thoughts. Maybe we could talk a little bit about the difference between playing a game that is in playtest versus a done game.
Yeah, I like that. Well, so here's what I would ask. I think you've probably done a lot more of this than us. And so the first thing that came to mind when you mentioned this topic was, and I'm sure you'll have an answer for this, Rich, which we will hopefully find out momentarily. I guess, like, what's your general responsibility when you're playtesting a game? You know, like, and what responsibility do you have to follow the rules, like, as written? And kind of, how is the experience different than playing a completed game? That's a lot of questions there, but that was kind of my overall question. Like, what are your responsibilities as a playtester?
I think it is really up to the game designer, the game design team, to help define what your responsibilities are. Because I've been in playtests where it was, hey, this is beta, go play with it and tell me if stuff is broken. And there have been others where I want to playtest this specific mechanic, and so let's give that a shot. So it varies, but generally as a playtester, and I'm in no way an expert, but I've recently been thinking about it quite a bit and trying to improve myself as a playtester. I try to play the game as I feel like it would play in a normal situation, but I'll angle towards mechanics rather than try to avoid them.
Okay, that makes sense. You've been kind of playtesting 2 different games right now, Masks and Dresden Fate Accelerated. Maybe like a little compare and contrast, like how have those processes been different for you?
Oh, they're very different. It's been interesting as the Dresden Fate Accelerated has just recently started. Masks RPG, I have been playing that as kind of one of the teams groups that is playing with Brendan Conway, the game designer, running the game.
You know, we should go back and just give the listeners a little quick overview, like a 60-second overview of what Masks is.
Okay, Masks RPG is currently in Kickstarter from Magpie Games and Brendan Conway, and it is a teenage superhero team-based book. So you're playing characters that are between 16 to 21 years old, and that's specific because it is utilizing the Powered by the Apocalypse rules, but your stats actually fluctuate based on how other people interpret you, or they can influence you and say, you know what, you're just a danger. And so your danger stat could go up or down. And it's that moment of, I've got these crazy powers, I don't know what to do with them. I'm working with my friends who are my team, but they also influence and help change and shape me as I become that adult that I'm eventually going to be.
Oh, that's cool. I like that. That sounds good. Okay, well, awesome. We'll continue. Sorry.
No problem. So the Masks RPG, as Brendan has run it, we jokingly have said every week there's a whole new rule set. Brendan's a prolific writer, and he's got all kinds of thinks about mechanics. And so we have actually played 3 different generations worth of characters, because at some point the iteration of rules is so radically different. We're just like, you know what? Let's just make new dudes, because changing these little bibbly bots, it completely reconceptualizes the character. So we've had 3 generations worth of characters who have all different sets of relationships, and we've tested, from start to finish. And the game as it exists now is radically different from what we started with. It always had the same kind of heart, but the end product that's on Kickstarter is really, really refined. And
awesome. That's awesome. I mean, so I imagine the Dresden one is probably, since that's an evil hat thing, I imagine that's probably a more structured, formalized playtest process. Is that fair?
Yeah, definitely. Evil Hat, they've really got it organized. They have hundreds, I would imagine, when I took a look. So they set up a Google group specifically for the playtesters. They have, a done-ish book, their beta version, which has art. It's laid out. It's really pretty. It's pretty much done. They could sell this sucker. But they really want to go through this beta playtesting to make sure that it's the perfect product. Evil Hat has a lot of dedication to that. And so they've got Google Forms that they're utilizing for each playtest session to provide specific feedback of what they're looking at. What did you play? What did you do during the session? Were there any things you interface with the rules here? What did you think about this aspect of the game? And then there's a very healthy discussion within the Google group that isn't just the playtesters, but Leonard Balsera and Pamela Alexander, who are both part of the development team, are on there actively engaging the people who are playing the game and asking a lot of specific and pointed questions about the game and how they interpret the rules and play with it. So it's been a radically different experience, but also.
That's a good segue. Here's the thing. Dan and I got to experience over a dozen of these 3 Forged games, right? Well, as a group, as the Gauntlet, we tested 16, as I recall. And some of them were really damn rough. Really rough and really, really hard to get through. I know the answer to this question, but I think it might be fun for us to talk about, where is the fun in the playtesting process? How do we find the fun? What is the fun of it?
You guys will probably have your own answers. I think a lot of people playtest because they want you to playtest their thing, maybe.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
I don't have a thing. So one day I'll write a baseball RPG, but there's only 10 people in the world who play, and I don't care.
the Venn diagram between baseball fans and role-playing game players is probably very, very...
Those circles don't
not
meet.
Much overlap.
There's no overlap. They don't even meet.
There's just some video game in the middle. That's it.
Exactly. Thank God for video games. I think that for playtest, first, I want to give to the community of the small press people. I really like this person. I think there are some people who do it because they want their name in the book. I won't lie. I don't mind looking at the book and see that my name's in there because I was a playtester. It's kind of neat, exciting. So it is.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
I'm sorry, but it's kind of cool to go, playtester Richard Rogers. Yes. So there are a wide variety of reasons. For me, I played Masks because that's a game I'm interested in. I got into Dresden Fate Accelerated because I like the Dresden novels. I like the Dresden RPG, but it just felt too damn dense. It was 2 books of 400 pages each. And so when they said Fate Accelerated, I'm like, ooh, that sounds interesting. I want to give that a shot. So me, it was more game specific. These are games I want to play, and they have a development process that I'll be happy to be part of.
Dan, where's the fun in playtesting games? We haven't done much of it, but we've done some.
A lot of it ties into what Rich was saying. I'm definitely more inclined to playtest a game that I'm just interested in the game itself, right? But I think that during play, a lot of the fun is just, in a lot of cases, it's seeing how it breaks and seeing why it breaks and sort of dissecting it and taking it apart and getting to see at the table where the pain points are and working through how I would solve these problems in my brain and all of that. And the discussion afterwards, talking about the game. For me, that's a lot of fun just in and of itself, beyond anything else about, trying to be a productive member of the RPG community, which that's good too. But me, I just want to see the world burn, right? So give me a shitty RPG sometimes and just let me see how it falls apart.
Nice. I'm kind of right there with you on that. We play tested these games. I would say about a third of them were like, playable-ish, right? Another third of them were like, okay, like it needs some work, but it's, and then the other third of them were a solid, like, these are not easy to play. These are really, really hard games to play. They are so raw. But I had just as much fun on all of them because, and this might just be a feature of our group or whatever, but, we might have spent an hour or two, or well, say like 2 hours playtesting the game, but we spent like a good 20 or 30 minutes afterwards discussing everything we liked about it, like what you just said, like everything we liked, what they could have done better, what I would have done, that sort of thing. And, that to me is the fun. That's the fun part of it. I actually, I'm not with you guys, or I should say I'm not really with Rich in the sense of, I'll playtest anything. Like if somebody asks me to playtest something, like I've got the group to make it happen. Like, like if you want to playtest, we'll playtest your thing. I'm more interested in the like role-playing game civic duty aspect of it, I guess. People need their games playtested and I kind of feel you, Rich. Like, someday I might need someone to playtest my games. I know who those people are. It's called the Gauntlet, but it might be nice to get the opinions of other people as well. So yeah. I enjoy the discussion of it. So to me, I think it's a cool part. So I assume you enjoy that part of it too, Rich, but
more or less, but I'm mostly after my name in the book, right?
Yes. Awesome. Well, okay. So question, how important is it when you're playtesting a game that you stick to the rules as written?
Well, it depends on what your purpose is, right? If you're trying to provide feedback, then absolutely stick to the rules as written. If you're playtesting a game that you're not anticipating ever really giving feedback to the designers, or it's past the point where your feedback matters, then at that point I would change things every turn if it made the experience at the table more interesting or better in some way.
What do you guys think about this? What if you're in the middle of a playtest of a game that's pretty raw, like say a Three Forged game, right? And you start changing some things and you make maybe dramatic changes too. And but you take good notes and you tell the designer, hey, this is what we did with your game. We changed this and this and this and it worked like this. It worked well or it didn't work well. I think that's helpful too, right?
Sure, yeah. But I think, again, it kind of depends on the scale that you're talking about. Like, if Rich were doing that, say, with this Masks playtest, that's probably a lot different than him being one of the, like, however many hundreds of people playtesting Dresden Fate Accelerated and being like, hey, Evil Hat, you guys should just change everything, right? So I don't think that's as helpful. Like, I think how close you are with the person you are actually, like, playtesting for should, in a lot of ways, determine how free you are to sort of reinterpret the game and change things as you go.
Yeah. Rich, what are your thoughts on that?
I'm not a skilled game designer in any way, shape, or form. So if someone were to say, hey, this thing didn't quite work, we tried it this way, this is cool, I'll be like, oh, that's really awesome. I'm going to use that. Probably because all I do is steal other people's mechanics anyway. But I have seen online on the interwebs some hissy fits from people who are game designers saying, don't tell me how to fix the thing. If you're playtesting, tell me where you ran into a broken part and then tell me where it's broken and then I'll go and fix it myself. So I think it really does it's that conversation with the person who's designing the game and what they want from you.
Yeah, that makes sense. I guess it depends on what the designer's goals are for the playtest. I mean, I can imagine a scenario where, it's a very different thing if you're doing a real raw game, like say a Three Forged game versus, Masks, which is essentially done at this point, right? And just is in sort of its final rounds of playtest. That makes a lot of sense. I mean, here's the thing though, and I think all three of us can speak to this. The three of us, none of us are game designers, like, of note anyway. I think we've all probably, hammered some things out, right? But, it's not really our jam at this point. Although I'm led to believe we're headed in that direction. I don't know. But nevertheless, the thing that the three of us do is we play lots of goddamn games, right? We play so many games. I mean, it's hundreds a year, right? And I think, I'm not saying that makes our feedback more valuable, but I am saying that I think we might bring something to the, an insight to the table that maybe the designer hadn't thought of. So I don't know. I think there's a line there. I'm not sure what it is. I'm not asking for a response to that. I'm just kind of throwing it out there as an idea, that I think the playtester matters to some degree. So.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
What do you guys think about this? What do you think about, I'm always interested in this idea of, should we have a unified jargon or a unified framework by which we evaluate role-playing games? Do you think something like that would be helpful in the playtest space? And here's what I mean. You look at things like more established mediums, like, say, movies, right? Or songs. There's an easy way of communicating with one another to, like, simply express complex ideas about, about things, about your work, right? When I say, like, when I say a certain thing about a movie, if I say something about the specific cinematography, terms of a movie or something, I don't know anything about movies. You get what I'm saying there, right? Like,
good choice using that as your analogy.
Yes, yeah. Do you think it would be helpful to have something like that in role-playing games? Is it even possible to have something like that in role-playing games? Or do we have it? And I'm just not aware of it because I'm an idiot.
Well, there's this thing called the Forge.
Right. We're going to do the Forge discussion.
And that was successful to some and not to others. I think when you try to define this ephemeral experience that we participate in, it's going to be problematic,
It's just, I'm not even saying that we should have that. I've just always, we had Paul Sega on about a couple months ago or 3 months ago maybe, and he said that, groups should just use the language that works for them, right? Like the language that works for them, and we have enough, like, tools to express, like, ideas to game designers. And I'm with that. I just wonder if there's a way of, like, I'm always interested in this idea of, should there be a more unified lingo or jargon? But I know in the Forge, I'm not, that's way before my time as far as role-playing games go. At least this, like, current iteration of me. Did it just not work out? Like, was it just a big mess? Like, what happened, Rich?
Well, there are a lot of opinions on that, but generally as an example of when people try to define terms around role-playing games, I would say that there are people who found value in that, and there are people who found a place to plant a flag and argue against it. So it was a dividing point for a lot of role-playing game enthusiasts who didn't buy into that particular interpretation of the way they play Pretend.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. Okay, well, all right. Is there anything else you guys want to say about this topic?
Sometimes playing a game that isn't done is hard. And when I want to play Pretend and speak in a funny voice and I don't understand what the mechanics mean, it sucks.
Yeah, that's a true statement. There's some Finnish games that have that problem. Just throw that out there.
Yeah.
I'm not going to name any of them, but, well, why don't we go ahead and go to community feedback? Hey, it's community feedback. So for community feedback this week, I found myself in kind of like a rut where I was so busy with my move to New Jersey and I had so many complicated things going on in my life because of that I felt like I was getting a little, like, out of touch with some things that were going on in gaming. You didn't have my finger on the pulse like I normally do. And so I asked the community to kind of put some things on my radar, on our radar. And so I thought we'd just spend a few minutes talking about some of those things. And Dan and Rich, if you guys have something you'd like to put on the community's radar, you should also chime in. But the first one I've got is from game designer and listener Marshall, who says that we should check out The Seventh Continent, which is a game that is being kickstarted currently. It's currently at $500,000 as of the moment.
Oh my God.
It has 26 days to go. It's by two guys who, as best I can tell, have never designed a game before. They're doing great. They're doing really awesome. This game, it looked like it was sort of a choose your own adventure, like, board game thing where you have all these cards and tiles that you lay out and you explore things. The game is insanely ambitious. The level of ambition in this game is bonkers. They have, there's all the exploration. You have, like, different characters who have different skills and powers. There are, because it's like a choose your own adventure thing, there are like thousands of different like outcomes that could happen on your exploration. There's crafting. There's all kinds of stuff. It's mind boggling. It comes with hundreds and hundreds of cards, because of all the stretch goals they're hitting. It's got hundreds and hundreds more that they weren't planning on. Super ambitious. It reads to me like the kind of game that's going to be a mess, but I don't know.
Yeah, I'm looking at this right now, and this is like blowing my mind. They've got cards and tiles and minis and just everything.
It's a lot, yeah. It is super ambitious. Do you know anything about that one, Rich? The Seventh Continent?
No, not a thing. That scares the heck out of me. I would not.
I know. I'm really I'm a little leery about it. Well, and I think game designer and listener Marshall threw it up there as a like, wow, look how ambitious this is. I'm not even sure he's, necessarily saying, wow, this is going to be awesome, right? But it was interesting. I'm going to keep my eye on it for sure. The next thing, listener Noah suggests that we should check out Trident Con, which is a con happening in Maryland, on October 17th and 18th. So by the time you get this, listeners, it will be, almost time for Trident Con. He mentioned something that I really loved, which is that at Trident Con, Dungeon Crawl Classics is a bigger deal than Pathfinder. So that's pretty awesome. I'm down with that. I'm down with anything that gently ushers Pathfinder off of the stage of our consciousness. All right. So Trident Con. I'm not a con guy. We don't do cons. Rich, do you know about Trident Con?
I've never heard of Trident Con, but it's got 3 prongs, and that's
yeah, so we should go check that one out. Listener Hans suggests a game that I've never heard of called Psionics. He thinks it's like a more extended play version of Meg Baker's Psyrun, a game that we love. I would just point out that you can actually play Psyrun in multiple sessions too. Most people play it as a one-shot, but it works as a multi-shot as well. But Psionics, it's kind of, looking at the website, it looked like kind of a fleshed out version of Psyrun. It uses a system called Dice Punk. Not familiar with it. Dice Punk, does that ring any bells? No? All right. Well, that's fine. That's the point of the segment. We're learning things. So yeah, listeners, if you know anything about that, you should definitely comment, on the post, this week. And then, that just leaves us. Those are the ones that I thought were interesting from the post. Well, there were several interesting ones, but one of them mentions another podcast, and we don't do that on the podcast. So, I'm kidding. No, it was listener Dave. He mentioned, I didn't even know Nathan Paoletta and Will Hindmarch have a podcast now. So that's pretty awesome. Have you guys listened to that one? It's a real,
no, I haven't.
I listened to it a little bit. It's super geeky. It's real geeky, like RPG design, like hardcore RPG design podcast. So, listeners should go check that out if you're interested in that aspect of the hobby. Put something on our radars, Dan.
Okay, well, I'm going to do 2 things because I'm allowed to break the rules because I decide what gets in the final edit.
True.
Number 1, there's a new game store that opened in Houston. It's called Geek Life. It is inside the loop, like toward the north end of the loop, and it's fantastic. Like they just opened, I guess, a week or 2 ago, and they're the place that we're playing our Friday games now. So if you're into geeky things and live in Houston, you should check out Geek Life. I'll put a link to their webpage in the show notes. And number 2, I just noticed this today, is there's a Kickstarter. Jason Pitry is doing a Kickstarter for SIG. It's an expansion for the Spark RPG, which I've also never played, but I get the feeling it's sort of a Planescape type thing. Have you guys seen that?
Yeah.
No, not yet.
Unfortunately, I'm probably going to back it. Darn it. But it does look super exciting.
I'm kind of there with you. I was kind of like grudgingly like, I guess I'm going to have to get this. Right.
It looks super cool. It is definitely Planescape with the serial numbers filed off. I've played Spark. I played earlier this year. It's Fate-ish, but very societal and faction oriented, and I had more fun than I've had in the big version of Fate. So yeah, I think it was a perfect fit for SIG if it's going to be like the Planescape factions orientation. And I think some of the stretch goals that I've heard so far sound exciting as well.
I'm not a Fate guy. I've said this 100 times in the cast, and Fate just, I don't know what it is. I want to get into it because I love all this stuff. I don't know. Maybe Fate Accelerated is the answer. Is Fate Accelerated the answer, Rich?
No.
Okay. Good to know. All right, good to know.
It's the thing. Fate Accelerated is pretty great. It is, I think, is a step closer. But if it really leaves you cold, the idea of a narrative GURPS where the mechanics are going to insert itself into nearly every sentence that you utter, then this is probably not the game for you.
Yeah. All right. Well.
Yeah, that is a shame too, because the worlds of Fate are all super cool. Like they do such a good job with all the settings that come out of that Patreon.
Yes, I agree. There are so many cool settings, and I may come on in the future if you guys have me back and totally change my tune as we play more Dresden Fate Accelerated. Guess session 2's tomorrow night, and it may flip that switch to where we're not going stop and start. And I think some of that's just because we're new to Fate Accelerated.
Yeah, I'll be happy to hear your progress on that. Okay, cool. Rich, put something on our radars.
All right, there is an online convention from a really great friendly community called RPG Geek that is sister site to Board Game Geek. You've probably heard of Board Game Geek, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the sister site RPG Geek, they hold an annual, this is the third year around for VirtuaCon. It's happening October 23rd, 24th, and 25th. And I'm excited about it. They have just posted up, as of this recording, all of the games. I think there are 60 plus games that are going to be run. Not one Pathfinder game, Jason. I thought I'd let you know that.
Hello.
And number of small press games, indie games are out there. I'm alt on the Night Witches game on Sunday morning. I'm sad about that. I should have clicked the button.
Oh, it's so good. Night Witches is so good. Oh, man.
I know. I really want to give it a shot. And hear you guys talk about it got me excited. I'm going to be running Sorcerers and Sellswords on Friday night. I'm running Lady Blackbird Friday afternoon because I took the day off because this is my con experience. And moderating a number of panels as well on Saturday. I get to interview Jason Morningstar. I'm so excited.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I am also participating in VirtuaCon in a very tiny way. I will be running Cheat Your Own Adventure, or facilitating Cheat Your Own Adventure, on Friday afternoon. And then I'm on a panel for how to create your local, or how to foster local role-playing game groups, which is something I know something about. So that's pretty awesome.
I've heard you have experience.
I have a little bit of experience with it, not much, but some. So yeah, that's pretty cool.
I can't wait for your panel. You're just gonna yell at people. Just like, don't let them make any decisions.
Got it.
Rule with an iron fist.
That's really my only advice. Yeah. You have to be. Yeah, it's called the Gauntlet for a reason. Well,
there's one other thing that I wanted to suggest. Indie Plus, which is a group that I've been part of for a little over a year, we're trying to build up our Google Plus community, and eventually attack and destroy the Gauntlet community. In no way is that true.
Understood. Yeah.
But we're having a drive right now, and there is an anthology of little Halloween-themed supplements for different games, like Lacuna Part 1. I've got a piece in there where I'm writing a little mission idea for Lacuna Part 1, and there's a haunted house for Urban Shadows that's written by Mark Diaz Truman, who put out Urban Shadows, a game that I've heard you talk about, Jason. And all of this is going to be in a free-to-download PDF for all of the community members, and we're trying to drive the numbers higher because we have some other game designers who are unlockable. There's no charge. You just join the community and then bam, you get the thing. And we've already unlocked the PDF. We're just trying to fill it out with some more exciting designers. So if you could leave a link, I would love it if people would come and join.
Yeah, we'll do. I have the first anthology that Indie Plus did, and I've looked at about half of it at this point. But it's pretty cool. Yeah, it was free then too.
You really should check out I Expect You to Die. That game is fun. It's my favorite right. Super Spy game ever.
Cool. Awesome. Hey, that was the podcast. If you would like to join our community, you should go to Google Plus and search for The Gauntlet. You will find us, and we are there, and we are happy to have you. We discuss games and stuff, and it's also a great place to get in touch with the hosts of the show. We also have an online gaming community called Gauntlet Hangouts. I'm looking at the calendar right now just to give you guys a sense of the games that we play on Gauntlet Hangouts, and games that you can join right now, at least the ones that aren't full. We are doing Monster of the Week. We are doing Dungeon World. We are doing Soth, which I still don't know much about. It's about cultists. That's all I know. We are doing, what else are we doing? Lamentations of the Flame Princess. We have OSR Tuesday now. We are doing Cheat Your Own Adventure. No, that's VirtuaCon, sorry. We're doing, Taste for Murder. It's another great game, as well as the Society of Dreamers, Golden Sky Stories, Funnel World, Fiasco, all kinds of stuff. The Warren. So yeah, go check out Gauntlet Hangouts. We have tons of gaming for you to do, and we want to see you there. So, this has been lovely. Rich, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Dan, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Listeners, thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next time. Yep.
1, 2, 3. Okay. Let's try that one more time.
I'm so sorry. I started and I couldn't commit to the clap. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Not right. Time delay clap, Rich. All right. One more time.
All right. 1, 2, 3, clap. I don't know if that's good or not. We'll figure it out. Whatever.